SLT Speed Up සවාරිය සමගින් සද්දන්ත වාසි රැල්ලක්. අලුත් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සබඳතා සඳහා පළමු මාස දෙක පුරා data double. Speed up with SLT.
Making headlines on First at 9, fourth in a row. The government insists the latest fuel price hike comes in line with the fuel pricing formula. Not all are impressed.
The real problem is the economic crisis that the government has created for itself.
UN raises eyebrows. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights expresses concerns over Sri Lanka reinstating the death penalty. Rajiv Gandhi assassination. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa responds to a tricky question.
So it is up to you all, the Indian government, to decide on it.
Erroneous report. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka seeks clarification from Japan's Nomura for placing Sri Lanka in an exchange rate crisis.
Please don't get misled by all these reports which are based on incorrect information.
The article is somewhat correct, even though the numbers are incorrect.
Tough going ahead. Sri Lanka's head coach on challenges expected during the Asia Cup.
It's going to be very hot, and whatever that brings, those are the challenges what I see.
A very good evening to all of our viewers and welcome to First at 9 on another Derana 24/7 Sri Lanka's news channel. I'm Katharina Chang. Now moving on to a top story tonight. Fuel prices in the country yet again saw a revision with effect from last midnight. The Ceylon Petroleum Corporation as well as the Lankan Indian Oil Company hiked their prices yesterday in line with the fuel pricing formula introduced by the government. The latest revision is the fourth price hike to come within the last 8 months.
The Ministry of Finance introduced a fuel pricing formula to amend fuel prices in line with prevailing global fuel prices, with the price revision to be done on the 10th of each month. The committee appointed for the purpose convened last night at the Ministry of Finance and had decided to increase the fuel prices since prices in the global market had increased. Accordingly, the price for a litre of 92-octane petrol is increased to 149 rupees, while a litre of 95-octane of petrol is hiked to 161 rupees. According to the Ministry of Finance, the revised price of a litre of auto diesel is 123 rupees and a litre of super diesel will cost 133 rupees. With the increase of the prices of the CPC, the Lankan Indian Oil Corporation also announced a price hike with effect from last midnight. Accordingly, the revised price of LIOC's 92-octane petrol is 150 rupees and a litre of 95-octane petrol will be sold at 164 rupees. Lanka IOC said that the price of auto diesel is increased to 123 rupees, litre of super diesel is increased to 133 rupees and a litre of extra mild diesel is 127 rupees, while a litre of extra premium petrol is 153 rupees. The CPC has increased its prices 4 times during the last 8 months of the year, with the last 3 price hikes being the result of the fuel pricing formula. The Sri Lankan government has been revising fuel prices according to the newly introduced price formula once a month, with the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation being under pressure, incurring continuous losses in the first several months of the year. Meanwhile, in India, which has a similar pricing formula for fuel, experienced nationwide protests yesterday against the record high petrol and diesel prices, shutting down businesses, government offices and schools in many parts of the country. In such a backdrop, the oil prices rose today as US sanctions squeezed Iranian crude exports, tightening global supply despite efforts by Washington to get other producers to increase output. Washington has told its allies to reduce imports of Iranian oil, and several Asian buyers, including South Korea, Japan and India, appear to be falling in line. Reuters, however, report that the US government does not want to push up oil prices, which could depress economic activity or even trigger a slowdown in global growth. Despite this development in September so far, US crude oil prices have fallen 2.9% compared to their rise of 1.5% in August. In the meantime, raising concerns over the fuel price hike, all Ceylon Private Bus Unions Federation says they will seek a 10% bus fare hike from the government owing to the increase in fuel prices. Malsri De Silva, the chairman of All Ceylon School Van Transport Association, also said that they will increase fares of school vans by 5% in line with the fuel price hike. In the meantime, several parties expressed their views about the latest fuel price revision.
Under
the Right to Information Act, we requested the relevant ministries and the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation to release the pricing formula on the 12th of July. The CPC said they are not involved in the formula, and the Minister of Petroleum Resources Development told us to request it from the Minister of Finance, which did not respond. When we appealed again, they refused to give the formula.
We know when the oil prices are fluctuating throughout the history, the government has been changing petrol prices here. The last time the world oil prices was at this level, $77 per barrel, was in 2010. In 2010, petrol was given at 115 rupees. Today it is at 150 rupees. So the government has to explain to people why is this price increase. But actually, if somebody asks what is the real problem is the economic crisis that the government has created for itself. So government is now charging people for the sins they have committed.
When they tried to introduce this when I was the minister, I stopped it because it doesn't suit the country. I should ask the Minister of Finance as to why they put in place such formulas, because I see that there are certain parties that want to bring negativity to the Prime Minister and the President. We vehemently rejected such suggestions back then. This is not a result of the fuel prices but the depreciation of the rupee. We have introduced a price formula just as it is in other economies, according to which the prices change once a month. At the moment, the fuel price is high in the international market.
Following reports of brutal ragging in state universities, President Maithripala Sirisena lamented at parents and authorities to be more aware of such incidents. President made these remarks at an event held in Hambantota yesterday.
The event to bless the newly built two-story building of Kotawaya Mahavidyalaya in Hambantota with its students was held under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena yesterday.
We produce a number of educated personnel annually. There are 2 or 3 universities in a province. There are Sri Lankans at every prominent international institution such as NASA. Sri Lankans are there in technologically advanced institutions in countries such as Japan and Israel. But imagine the plight of the university students in a country which has achieved all of that. Why is that all these educated students harass their fellow students? Parents, teachers and the educated of the country must become aware of these kinds of brutal harassment of university students. What's the point of being educated if students are being sexually assaulted, murdered and influenced to commit suicide through ragging? For us to be developed as a country, we must also focus on enhancing professional education.
Direct flights between Sri Lanka and Vietnam will be a reality in the future as part of a move to strengthen economic relations and tourism industries of the two countries. According to the Prime Minister's office, Premier Ranil Wickremesinghe spoke in favour of the move during bilateral discussions with his Vietnamese counterpart.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, who is engaged in an official visit to Vietnam to participate in the World Economic Forum on ASEAN, held discussions with the Vietnamese Prime Minister today at the government office in Hanoi. United Nations Day of Vesak celebrations are to be held in Hanoi next year, and the Vietnamese Premier had requested Sri Lanka's support to make the international summit a success. Vietnamese Premier had also highlighted the importance of direct flights between the two countries, as many Vietnamese are interested in travelling to Sri Lanka as tourists. Responding to the sentiment, Prime Minister Wickremesinghe had expressed willingness to take all efforts to make the initiative a reality. During discussions, the two premiers had also agreed to draft a memorandum of understanding on the fisheries industry. The talks between the two leaders had also included regional, social, economic and political issues.
UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Michelle Bachelet is concerned of the Sri Lankan government's plans to reinstate the death penalty. Focusing on Sri Lanka during her opening statement at the 39th session of the Human Rights Council yesterday, Bachelet highlighted the government's plans to establish an office for reparations.
The 39th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council commenced in Geneva yesterday. In her opening statement, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Michelle Bachelet focused on Sri Lanka among other countries. While mentioning that Sri Lanka has moved too slowly towards meaningful implementation of the transitional justice agenda, she commended the efforts to begin consultation and institutional capacity building of the Office of Missing Persons. She also highlighted government's plans to establish an office for reparations. Meanwhile, Bachelet noted that more progress in advancing accountability and truth-seeking could have great weight in the long-term stability and prosperity of Sri Lanka. She, however, expressed concern on incidents of racist and intercommunal violence, claiming that they are disturbing, while expressing the same sentiments on government's plans to resume the use of death penalty. The 39th session of the UNHRC will focus on high-level discussions on various human rights-related issues and will be held until the 28th of September.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, the Derana 24/7.
Welcome back to the news. On other local news tonight, General Secretary of the United National Freedom Front Attorney at Law Maitri Gunaratne alleges that the JVP's 20th Amendment to the Constitution prevents the right of general public to elect the President. Addressing a media briefing held in Colombo today, Gunaratne added that the 20th Amendment also indirectly supports the incumbent Prime Minister to be the Executive Prime Minister of the country.
Now the Janata Vimukti Peramuna has bought the 20th Amendment. Having bought the 20th Amendment, trying to say that the President need not be elected, that the parliamentarians will vote and elect the President. If that happens, Arjuna Mahendran, Arjuna Aloysius will be able to buy the parliamentarians and elect the President they want. The Sinhalese, the Muslims, the Tamils, the Burghers. Everyone votes at a presidential election to vote the President in. With the 20th Amendment, that system they are trying to do away with. So that is a great disadvantage to all political parties and the people of this country.
A Japanese financial holding company, Nomura Holdings, places Sri Lankan economy at the risk of its rupee being devalued. The findings had come in a new analysis published by the company on 7 emerging economies at risk of an exchange rate crisis. Other countries cautioned in Nomura's report are South Africa, Argentina, Pakistan, Egypt, Turkey and Ukraine. Given the severity of the claims made in the analysis, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka has sought clarification from the financial holding company, seeking a correction to what it called an error.
A Japanese financial holding company, Nomura Holdings, has published a new analysis on 7 emerging economies at risk of an exchange rate crisis. The startling factor included in its report for Sri Lanka is that the island nation is also included among the 7 highlighted countries, accompanied by South Africa, Argentina, Pakistan, Egypt, Turkey and Ukraine. With 5 of the 7 nations already in a currency crisis or under a program run by the International Monetary Fund, South Africa and Pakistan appear to be standout countries from the group identified to be at risk. Nomura's findings are based on an early warning model called Damocles, set up to identify exchange rate crisis for 30 emerging economies. The model examines a variety of factors including foreign exchange reserves, debt levels, interest rates and import cover. According to the analyst, it has predicted 2/3 of the 54 developing nation exchange rate crisis since 1996, up to 12 months in advance. Taking to Twitter, State Minister of National Policies and Economic Affairs, Dr. Harsha De Silva alerted that the CBSL has moved to seek clarification from Nomura Holdings over its erroneous analysis that put Sri Lanka at high risk of an exchange rate crisis. Addressing a letter to Nomura Holdings, the CBSL refuted the figures highlighted in the report. It said, although Nomura's report gives Sri Lanka the worst outlook, saying the country's refinancing needs are large, owing to reserves of less than 5 months of import cover and high short-term external of $160 billion, Sri Lanka's short-term external debt is nowhere near the $160 billion quoted in the article. Therefore, the CBSL says Nomura's analysis had made a serious computational error with regard to Sri Lanka's vulnerability. It went on to say that Sri Lanka's short-term external debt are currently estimated at $14.3 billion, stressing that such an erroneous report is likely to trigger a disturbance amongst the investors and could cause irreplaceable damages to Sri Lanka given the current volatile global market conditions. Speaking to First at 9, Senior Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. P. Nandalal Veerasinghe urged people not to be misled by such incorrect information.
Please don't get misled by all these reports which are based on incorrect information. Nomura Holdings has very little business as far as we know with Sri Lanka. They have never consulted, they have never cross-checked the accuracy of their report with us before they issuing it to the public international media. Even if you consider Sri Lanka's exposure to short-term external liabilities, on the government side, what we have is maximum. The foreign investors' investment in government securities, total exposure that we have at this point of time is less than $2 billion. To cover that exposure, more than $8 billion worth of reserves. And in addition, we have almost close to 5 months of import coverage. So if you look at these numbers, I don't see any reason for us to be concerned.
Also elaborating on the matter, business cycle analyst Dr. Kenneth De Silva said, although they have quoted incorrect figures on Sri Lanka's short-term external debt, including Sri Lanka among the emerging economies at risk of an exchange rate crisis, is agreeable.
Globally also we find that many of the Asian currencies are under a lot of stress with regard to the exchange rates, and these exchange rates have depreciated significantly, causing a lot of concern to be raised about the viability of investments within Asia. Within that context, Sri Lanka also has been mentioned as a high-risk country in that regard. The article which says that Sri Lanka has vulnerability to foreign exchange is somewhat correct, even though the numbers are incorrect. The concentration risk is significant in the short term. We have to kind of focus on how we are going to manage our external debt stock and our external cash flows. Within those parameters, if central bank can look at restructuring its debt portfolio and shifting some of its shorter term maturities, I think the currency will not be under so much of pressure.
Colombo shares closed flat today near a closing low of more than 1 week. The Osha price index ended 0.02% weaker at 6,095.23, its lowest close since September 3rd. Turnover was 337.3 million rupees, less than half of this year's daily average of 792.8 million rupees. We now have Dimantha Matthew from First Capital Holdings for a detailed report.
The bourse ended in the red for the second straight session, falling to a 1-week low dragged down by LOLC and Sri Lanka Telecom. Turnover was more onto the lower side at rupees 337 million, while nearly about 35% of was derived by crossings. HNB and Union Assurance were the main positive contributors during the day, while LOLC and Sri Lanka Telecom were the main negative contributors during the day.
Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan rupee ended steady today as importer dollar demand offset greenback sales by banks, but the currency was still under downward pressure due to global strengthening of the US currency. The rupee, which hit a low of 162 rupees and 37 cents in intraday trade today, ended at 162 rupees and 35 to 45 cents per dollar, unchanged from yesterday's close. Let's now take a look at the foreign exchange rates. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa arrived in New Delhi last night as India hotly debates Tamil Nadu government's decision to release convicts of late Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi's assassination. On Sunday, we brought you the decision by the Tamil Nadu government to seek the release of 7 persons convicted for the murder of the late Indian Prime Minister. Indian State Minister D. Jayakumar said the decision is in line with the public sentiment, which is in favour of prisoners' release. It's been reported that although Tamil Nadu-based political parties DMK and AIADMK are supporting the latest development, country's ruling Bharatiya Janata Party is not in favour of the decision. Upon his arrival at the New Delhi airport last night, Indian journalists immediately sought former President Rajapaksa's view on the matter, to which he said that the final decision rests with the Indian government.
It is upon an invitation extended by the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party that former President Mahinda Rajapaksa is currently engaged in an official visit to India. During his visit, the former president will meet with leaders of the Indian government as well as the opposition. Former President Rajapaksa was welcomed by Member of Parliament, senior BJP leader Dr. Subramaniam Swamy. Upon his arrival at the Indira Gandhi International Airport last night, journalists from the Chennai-based Tamil News satellite television channel Tanti TV asked the former president for his views on Tamil Nadu government's decision to seek the release of 7 convicts found guilty of the assassination of late Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi.
Your arrival time is very important when Tamil Nadu government has decided to release 7 convicted who are involved in Rajiv Gandhi assassination.
So it is up to you all, the Indian government, to decide on it.
But sir, your comment and your part is also important for that particular incident.
No, we have punished them.
Tamil Nadu government's move to seek the release of the 7 convicts found guilty of assassinating former Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi comes as the Supreme Court asked the governor of the Tamil Nadu to make a call on the mercy petition filed on behalf of one of the convicts, A.G. Perarivalan. The state reasoned that it would recommend the release of all 7 relevant convicts since they had also petitioned for early release. Rajiv Gandhi's assassination by LTTE bomber Danu on the 21st of May in 1991 and the subsequent trial and conviction of the assassins have been an emotive subject in Tamil Nadu, with many in the state believing that the convicts played minor roles and were drawn into a plot they knew little about. The convicts Perarivalan, Murugan, Santam, Nalini Sriharan, Robert Pius, Jayakumar and Ravichandran have been behind bars for 27 years, serving life sentence across various prisons in Tamil Nadu.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
The United States threatens sanctions against the International Criminal Court if it goes ahead with prosecutions against Americans. The court is currently considering prosecuting U.S. servicemen over alleged detainee abuse in Afghanistan. National Security Advisor John Bolton called the court illegitimate and vowed the U.S. would do everything to protect its citizens. The U.S. is among dozens of nations not to have joined the court.
The United States will use any means necessary to protect our citizens and those of our allies from unjust prosecution by this illegitimate court. We will not cooperate with the ICC. We will provide no assistance to the ICC, and we certainly will not join the ICC. We will let the ICC die on its own. After all, for all intents and purposes, the ICC is already dead to us. The, quote, crime of aggression could become a pretext for politically motivated investigations. Was the mission of U.S. Navy SEALs that killed Osama bin Laden in Pakistan a crime of aggression? What about the U.S. coalition airstrikes in Syria to protect innocent children from chemical weapons? How about U.S. military exercises with allies and partners around the world? Or Israel's actions to defend itself on countless occasions?
As Sri Lanka gears to compete in the looming Asia Cup set to be worked off in the United Arab Emirates, head coach Chandika Hathurisinghe highlights hot conditions as the biggest challenge his side will have to face. He speculated on the challenges ahead while addressing a pre-departure media briefing held at Sri Lanka Cricket today.
16-member Sri Lanka team will be leaving to UAE tonight to take part in the Asia Cup 2018. 15 of us are leaving tonight, and Akila Dhananjay will be joining us in due course. As we all know, next to the World Cup, this is the most important tournament in the cricketing calendar. We have trained really hard, having realized the magnitude and the level of competition we are going to come up against. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a very hard tournament.
We are in good headspace, so we really look forward to this tournament. We will do our very best to bring glory to our country.
Lasith, we all know what he is capable of. We think that his skill set suits us for this tournament. He's one of the best death bowlers in the world. Last 1.5 months, he performed really well, and his fitness has come up to our expectations. So I think he can play a big role in our team. We don't take any team lightly, and we really wanted to win first 2 games to qualify for the next round. Challenge going to be for every team is the condition, the weather condition is going to be very hot, and whatever that brings, dew or swing in the night, those are the challenges what I see.
Inspector General of Police has ordered the Criminal Investigation Department to take over investigations into the complaint made by Sri Lanka Cricket at the Financial Crimes Investigations Division. SLC filed a complaint with the FCID yesterday over an attempted embezzlement of $5.5 million on televising rights of the England tour. It was revealed yesterday that there was a fraudulent attempt to transfer the funds of SLC's media rights sponsorship to an offshore account. England are scheduled to visit Sri Lanka for a fully fledged tour comprising 5 ODIs, 1 T20 international and 3 tests to be played from the 10th of October in Dambulla, and the tour will conclude with the final tests in Colombo on the 23rd of November. Sri Lanka's netball team, which emerged victorious in the 11th Asian Championships at the recently concluded event in Singapore, arrived in the country today. With their 69-50 win over Singapore in the finals, Sri Lanka became the most successful side in the history of the competition, having won the title 5 times.
Sri Lanka's winning netball team arrived in the country today after successfully concluding the 11th Asian Netball Championship in Singapore. The Ministry of Sports had organised a ceremony to welcome the team as they brought pride to the country by winning the championship after 9 years.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Sheila Fernando is at the Other Derana Weather Centre with your forecast first evening edition.
A very good evening to our viewers and welcome to Forecast First. Starting off with your temperatures for tomorrow that will vary between 19 and 35 degrees Celsius with the highest of 35 expected in Batticaloa. When looking at the map, a low pressure zone will develop in the central hills and will gradually disappear. Well, moving on to your rain forecast for tomorrow, several parts of the upper region of the island will experience showers with thunder activity also expected. Well, in the lower region of the island, many parts except for Negombo and Kalmune will experience the sunny weather. That's all from the Weather Centre tonight. Up next is your city by city forecast.
And that is it from Other Derana First at 9 for tonight. But before we go, as usual, we are leaving you with some visuals of unique Sri Lanka. And today they come from the Lake Sembuwatta, located in the area of Al Kadua in the Matle district, adjacent to the Campbell's Lane Forest Reserve. Lake Sembuwatta is a man-made lake created from a natural spring. This lake is believed to be 9 to 12 meters deep and is the source of electricity for the nearby villagers. We hope you enjoy these visuals and have a pleasant evening.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.